Our lives are filled with countless ups and downs, and although we yearn for a sense of control, we live each day never really knowing what's going to happen. We seek to live lives filled with pleasure and try at all costs to limit pain, but we inevitably experience our fair share of both. Hello, my name is Amanda Kostman from the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension.
I'm Jane Jensen, Human Development Relationships Educator with UW-Madison Extension. So during this Wise Wisconsin Winter Series, we'll discuss techniques to cultivate optimism in our lives. And we'll be utilizing strategies and techniques with the Optimist Creed from Martin Seligman's book, Learned Optimism.
The ability to put optimism front and center can transform your life. Being an optimist requires faith. A faith that no matter what, everything is going to be okay. And that even in your darkest moments, the light will find its way to get in. Of course, there's no guarantee it will, hence the faith part. But no matter what, the optimistic mindset will help you see solutions to problems, alleviate stress, and avoid dwelling in a pessimistic state of mind. The awareness and acceptance of this fundamental reality is what differentiates us from all other species and provides a unique challenge to our existence. How do we live a happy life knowing that our good times won't last forever and none of us will make it out of this game we call life alive? There's a lot of different answers to ponder, but I believe the simplest one lies in one word: optimism. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. No one's world is all sunshine and roses. But being aware of feelings and intentionally cultivating optimism into our days or into stressful situations can be done by using the techniques we will discuss. This presentation highlights optimism through the Optimist Creed because it is where it rang truest to me. But you may find words to inspire you anywhere: a prayer, a pledge, a mantra, or on a meme.
Promise yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. So there are always going to be times when pessimism creeps in, but we all have the power or the ability to reevaluate our perspective and shift it to an optimistic state. But it takes commitment. It takes lots of practice. And I believe that optimism is like a muscle we can train. And there are several tools that we'll be sharing throughout our presentation today, ranging from reframing, viewing setbacks as temporary, viewing bad things as specific, not universal, seek solutions to problems, give yourself credit for what you do, and recognizing beliefs are not facts, practice positive self-talk. So for example, I'll focus on reframing, and reframing is really the ability to look at things in a different way. For example, finding something meaningful in a difficult situation. So I'll give some examples from family caregivers. For example, a caregiver who views the behavior of someone with Alzheimer's disease as purposely behaving that way to get to me versus the view that the behavior is part of the disease is reframing. Or a family caregiver who's angry at her brother because he only helps once a month versus taking the view that any help I get, no matter how little, will lighten the load. And really thinking about what we can control and what we can't control. And there are always going to be difficult times in our lives, but how do we reframe that part so it doesn't affect our entire lives? It's only one difficult part that affects one part, but how do we prevent it from affecting our entire relationship? And it's also a matter of learning what to let go of, and in terms of accepting what is versus what used to be, or if only. You're invited to pause this video and reflect about a time you were able to reframe in a difficult situation.
Promise yourself to talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet. Think about the most optimistic person you know, and I bet when you and others are around them, their spirit is contagious. People like to be around optimists because it makes them feel better. On the flip side, we all know what it's like to be around a pessimist. Their glass is always half empty, they tend to doubt any good new ideas, and they aren't as much fun. Remember to include yourself in talking health, happiness, and prosperity. Positive self-talk can really help. Think about those tapes that play in your head. Sometimes you'll need to interrupt negative ones and put positive ones on repeat. You may wish to choose a mantra and make that thought a habit when you realize that negativity has taken voice. You are invited to pause this video to think about someone who is optimistic. How do you feel around them?
Promise yourself to make all your friends feel there is something in them. So this tenet is really related to giving yourself credit for what you do and also giving your friends credit for what they do, because we really do some pretty heroic things. So focus on what you're doing right. An optimist is more willing to take credit for the good things that happen and not feel responsible for all the bad things that happen over which he or she has no control. You're invited to pause this video and reflect on something you've done that you can give yourself credit for.
Promise yourself to look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true. We all try to do this, try to find that ray of sunshine in a difficult situation, but sometimes it's really challenging. When it gets that challenging to find that sunny side, we can do something that brings in the sunshine. It could be a walk in nature, it could be music, it could be certain people. One thing that brings sunshine for me is music. Music has an amazing ability to change the way we think and feel. If you're like me and music brings that sunshine, you might want to try to put together the most positive, uplifting music you know and enjoy. It'll help you find that glimmer of sunshine in no time. You can also cultivate optimism in your daily life by making things that bring sunshine part of your routine. If it's music, it could be one song or a dozen. All that matters is you make it part of your daily routine. Those of us who have a smart home assistant can make it part of our positive morning routine. And sometimes you can dance if you're really feeling in the mood. If it's people, be around the people who bring sunshine into your life. Make that a routine too, like weekly or monthly phone calls, Zooms, or gatherings. And try to reduce that exposure to those who might steal your sunshine. What really counts is that you find what brings sunshine to you and incorporate that into your routine. You are invited to pause this video to think about what brings the sunshine for you.
Promise yourself to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. And this is where we talk about making a list of the most optimistic and pessimistic forces in your life. So determine what are those things you can get rid of immediately and make a decision to rid yourself of them. Of course, you can't hit delete on every person and everything. So just spend a few minutes, determine a plan, how you will respond when those forces surface. And I go back to a quote by Maya Angelou who said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. So there may be times when the only thing you can change is how you view the situation. And the strategy here from the Cultivating Optimism book is recognizing that beliefs aren't facts. And so Seligman said that many people make the mistake of assuming the negative things that they say about themselves must be true. And he's really suggesting that we need to challenge those self-reclamations and look at it that in the same way as if someone has accused us of doing something we know is not true. You're invited to pause this video. Reflect on what pessimistic force you can delete or change how you view it.
Promise yourself to be just as enthusiastic about the successes of others as you are about your own. Finding optimism in others' successes can increase the amount of celebrating in life you can do exponentially. You can concentrate on celebrating everyone or choose one or a few people to really invest in celebrating them. Not only will you lift them up, but in the process you will lift yourself up too. And who doesn't want to celebrate more in life? You are invited to pause this video to ponder these 3 questions. Who celebrates your wins? Whose successes do you celebrate? How does it make you feel?
So the next tenet is promise yourself to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. And this means learning from our mistakes and moving on. That will help us be more future focused. So again, if we go back to Martin Seligman's book, Unlearned Optimism, the strategy that we're talking about there is viewing bad things that happen as specific, but not universal, and to view setbacks as temporary. So for example, an optimist sees good things as permanent or lasting, and problems as very temporary. And pessimists frequently use the words always, never, and caregivers who cared for others will often describe closer relationships as a result of their caregiving situation. And so, for example, viewing a loved one's illness as affecting only part of their lives and not their entire relationship or their future. And thinking about that there are still things that can be enjoyed together in our lives.
You're invited to pause this video. Reflect on any experiences you had where you found positives in the situation, even though things had changed.
Promise yourself to wear a cheerful countenance at all times and give every living creature you meet a smile. It's been written about a lot, but don't underestimate the power that smiling can have on your life. This most basic human expression has been shown to reduce stress hormone levels, lower blood pressure, and stimulate our brain's reward mechanism more than even eating chocolate. I'd like to invite you to watch a TED Talk by Ron Goodman.
The next tenet is to promise yourself to give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others. So if we go back to a strategy from Seligman's book on Cultivating Optimism, what we pulled out from that is to seek solutions to problems. Optimistic people generally will look toward hopefulness and more at the prospects of what can I do? And when problems develop, they focus on finding solutions. And pessimists tend to feel helpless to change anything. So those optimists also will generally say things usually work out eventually.
You're invited to pause this video. Reflect on what has helped you determine steps to solve a problem. Taking time to determine the real problem can help.
Promise yourself to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. Practice gratitude. When you go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, or while you heat up your food at lunchtime, take a few minutes and write down 3 things you are grateful for. We often lose sight of just how amazing our lives are. Doing this exercise regularly helps your mind focus on all the good things happening in your world and sets you up to have a positive day. You are invited to pause this video to think about 3 things that you are grateful for. The tenets of optimists aren't the ultimate guide to optimism, but it's a great start. We will find ourselves in situations where optimism isn't helpful, but by incorporating the tenets that resonate with you, you can cultivate optimism in your life. You are invited to pause this video to think about which tenet resonates most with you. You wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't looking to cultivate optimism in your own life. You are invited to pause this video to think about which tenet you would like to focus on to cultivate optimism in your life.
As Amanda said, you don't have to use the Optimist Creed, but there are many other things that many of us find useful. And for me, the Serenity Prayer has been something that I found incredibly useful in my life. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's really a pretty simple approach to peace and optimism in our lives. We shared many strategies to cultivate optimism based on the Optimist Creed, and we've summarized them for you here. We're ending with a quote from Virginia Satter. Life is not the way it's supposed to be, it's the way it is. The way we cope with it is what makes the difference. I think if I have one message, one thing before I die that most of the world would know, it would be that the event does not determine how to respond to the event. That's a purely personal matter. The way in which we respond will direct and influence the event more than the event itself.
Extension educators are located in most counties in Wisconsin, so check with your local extension office about your local programming. Thank you for joining us, and please tune in for another Wise Wisconsin Winter Series program.